Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yudha Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sadhvijatam Sakala Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sakala Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. It is my great pleasure to be amongst all of you this evening. Pandava Sena gatherings are extraordinary. This I have heard and personal experience also. When I came, I was remembering Vrindavan in 1971. It was very quiet then. There were only 2 foreigners in all of Brajbhumi. One Asim Krishnadas and myself. There was no ISKCON. And there was hardly any stores. It was very quiet, a lot of forests. I was supposed to be there only 3 days. I was on my way to the Himalayas. But I came down with typhoid fever on the 3rd day. And eventually I was brought to an ashram with one of Prabhupada's godbrothers to restore my health. I would never sleep indoors, so I slept on top of the roof. And every night, under the stars, I would lay down, and all night, every night, the same melody was sung from miles and miles away on a speakerphone. It was that melody that I sang just now. It charmed my heart. I would just lay down and hear Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And the way it was sung, it was a very old Vrindavan speaker system. And where the speaker was at least 1 kilometer away, I think, on the parikrama path. And there was an old man who sang, and then an old lady that sang the next time. They traded off. Just 2 people. Brajvasis. And along with their singing, peacocks were cawing throughout the night. And there was a guard system in Vrindavan. In England, traditionally, there was a system by which guards would check to make sure that they were all right. They would say 1 o'clock and all is well, right? And then somebody would say 1 o'clock and all is well, and then farther away, 1 o'clock and all is well. Well, in Vrindavan, the night guards, they only had a stick. There were no guns. They just had stick. And one of them would say, Radhe Sham. And then at a distance away you'd hear, Radhe Sham. And then at a further distance, Radhe Sham. All night long, continuously, they were singing. With the peacocks and the night birds. And this old Brijavasi man and lady singing this melody. And that is how I would fall asleep every night. It was very special under the Vrindavan stars and the trees. And then interesting, when I came to Prabhupada, the first cassette tape I ever heard of Prabhupada, he was singing this melody. Do you remember? It was one of the earliest kirtan tapes of Srila Prabhupada. He sang this melody. So it's very special. To me, anyway. And I wanted to share it with you tonight. Before I speak anything, I would like to congratulate all of you. This wonderful Sangam, Pandava Sena, has not only inspired and rejuvenated Krishna Bhakti in the hearts of so many people in the United Kingdom, but it's spreading like an epidemic in various parts of the world. Yes, in America, New Jersey, there's Pandava Sena. And where else? Australia.
Holland.
Malaysia, Holland.
Malaysia and Holland. And it all began here. I know in America I've met Pandava Senas and they are so enthusiastic. It's almost like another revolutionary movement in America. It's growing. But that is exactly what Srila Prabhupada wanted. Srila Prabhupada wanted our enthusiasm to practice Krishna consciousness and to share Krishna consciousness with others to be contagious. And when there is enthusiasm based on principles of purity, Krishna manifests through that situation. And it attracts people's hearts. What all of you have been doing and are doing here is simply wonderful. And I want to thank you. When I think back of the Gaudiya Mata of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and I think of Srila Prabhupada and his godbrothers, who were in their 80s and their 90s, as very, very sober, learned, stalwart Vaishnava, sadhu, gurus, scholars. If you read the history, almost every single one of them joined Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati when they were either teenagers or in their early 20s. He really, really targeted the youth. And they came. Srila Prabhupada, he was just married. He was in his early 20s. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave him that instruction on the rooftop of Ultadonka Junction Road, the Bhakti Vinod Bhavan. It was just a small place. They couldn't even fit everyone. They didn't even have this much space. I've been there. They had to go on the rooftop to fit this many people. And there was a jackfruit tree that was coming from the ground, giving shade, and he would sit under. And Prabhupada was only in his early 20s when he was given that instruction to take Lord Chaitanya's message and spread it throughout the world in the English language. And that seed was planted in his heart. But because he was already married with a family, he just cultivated that seed with his heart and soul. And others, most of them younger than Srila Prabhupada, they weren't married. So they just became brahmacharis. And dozens of them. They were just so inspired and so enthusiastic that they just kept preaching until they were like 93 years old. It's powerful. And Srila Prabhupada explains that at the time that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was generating all this energy of recruiting these young boys to be brahmacharis, and just many of them were taking sannyas when they were in their early 20s, and being sent to England and to Germany. Hare Krishna. Meanwhile, Mahatma Gandhi, Subhash Chandra Bose, they were trying to somehow or other gain liberation or independence from the British. And I believe it was, Prabhupada tells a story, Subhash Chandra Bose came to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Now this is a big deal for him to go to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Not to ask for spiritual guidance, but to ask for manpower. He said the most qualified, intelligent young men are joining your movement and becoming sadhus. How are we going to throw the British out if the young people are becoming sadhus? You should give them over to me to join the Indian National Army to fight for our independence. But it's amazing. That's to the effect Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was affecting the youth of India at that time by his enthusiasm. And whoever he canvassed and attracted, he empowered them with that same type of enthusiasm. And it was spreading and spreading and spreading. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, actually, he said, you need very strong, stout fighters. He said, these boys are very skinny and weak. Let them just chant Hare Krishna and eat some prasad. They will not be of much help to you. And in this way he convinced them. Haribol. And Srila Prabhupada said some of the top people who became acharyas and sannyasis, when they were young and they joined Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Prabhupada said sometimes their parents would come. They were only childs. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati would hide them under the bed where he was sitting. And when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, who did he attract? The youth. Amazing. 70-year-old man in the Lower East Side of New York. But dozens and dozens and dozens in their teens, and most of them very early 20s. just by Prabhupada's compassion and his enthusiasm, they dedicated their lives. Most of the senior-most devotees of ISKCON today, they came to Prabhupada when they were very young, boys and girls. Prabhupada used to call them boys and girls. I don't remember hearing in his lectures where he calls them ladies and gentlemen, his disciples. He would call everybody else ladies and gentlemen. Or men and women. He would say these boys and girls. So young. Literally, teenagers, 20, 21, 22. That's the average age that people were surrendering their lives. And many of these devotees, to this day, they're giving their lives with such enthusiasm to broadcast this great mission. Srila Prabhupada explained why it's so important to reach the youth. Because young people are searching for answers, searching for alternatives. And young people also often have very high ideals that they want to aspire for. But when people get older, the tendency is they just get completely locked into the system and they can't really pursue their ideals. I remember in the late 70s and early 80s, I was doing a circuit of lectures in colleges in the United States of America. And at one university, it was a sociology class. And this particular professor would invite me at least 2 times every semester to address all of his classes. It would take about a week to address all of his classes every day. And he was a little older than me. He was a PhD. I think he got his PhD at Harvard University. And I would speak the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but because it was a sociology class, I had to package it so it sounded sociological. Otherwise, I actually had no right to be there. Whatever class we'd get, we would just begin on the topic of the class, and then it would always end up Bhagavad Gita. But there had to be some type of introduction. If it was history, I would talk something history, and then sociology, something sociology. If it was anthropology, something anthropology. Even like music, philosophy, even a mathematics class. We would just call every professor possible and say, yes, we can speak about the mathematics of Vaishnavism or the Vedic culture. So we would get in the door, and they always liked it. They always invited us again and again and again. So in this sociology, in one class, I was explaining how the Hare Krishna movement began, the sociological context. And I explained the 1960s in America. Hare Krishna, very strange. Where there was a Vietnam War raging, and there was civil rights raging, and there was so many people who were just frustrated with the materialistic norms of society, and they became hippies, and they were burning cities, and they were having peace marches, and it was amazing. And Prabhupada came into that situation where people had no answers. They were revolting against what they didn't believe, but they didn't have an answer. And Prabhupada gave them the perfect answer. And I saw the students were in rapt attention, because I was saying it much better than I'm saying it now. But the teacher was crying. He had a beard, and there were tears gliding through his beard onto the floor. And I was wondering, is he crying because he's, I don't know, he's a PhD Harvard professor. So at the end of the class, in front of all the students, he just got up and said, the ideals and the enthusiasm of my youth has been revived today. He says, because everything he's talking about, of people who are willing to live and die for their ideals, that's the way I was when I was in college. But now look at me. I'm just a ordinary professor, just grading papers, and I have no ideals. I have nothing. It's just a boring, dull life. But when I was young, there was such vigor, ideals, wanting to change the world, wanting to do something great. What am I doing now? But he's restoring this feeling in my heart. And then he would invite me every class, every semester. And after each class, he'd take me into his office and just talk to me about his youth for about 2-3 hours in his office. And he said, that's the way almost everybody is. You just get locked into the system, and once you have a family, and you get a job, and you have a career, and you have to compromise in order to fulfill the expectations of your employers, then there's no time to think about changing the world. Hare Krishna. Mm. And it's very true. And I remember the professor said, if only I met the Hare Krishna devotees when I was young, my whole life would be so auspicious. He said, look at you, you're still living for your ideal and trying to change the world, and you're my age. Haribol, make the world into a better place. So youth is precious. And what we establish in our youth will very much be what we are for our life. As we were saying, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he just got some of these young people and they became powerful, powerful preachers of Krishna consciousness for the rest of their lives. Srila Prabhupada did the same. Madhvacharya, he took sannyas when he was 12 years old. Haribol. And Shankaracharya, he took sannyas when he was about 11 years old. Hare Krishna. And look at their careers, and look at the people that they affected. So this is the time. Many of you may be professional people with families in the future, with husbands or with wives and children. But if you really have that spiritual purpose that enthuses your heart, then your whole life will be centered around that. Not just some dogmatic religion or some traditional superstitions, but a science, a philosophy, and a lifestyle with a culture that's dynamic, that has deep, deep meaning, that answers questions, and that has traditions and culture that are so beautiful and so pure that we could base our life upon. What greater gift is there than that? And this is the time. You heard the saying, youth is wasted on the young. Because these formative years are so often lost because we do not understand the value of it and what we can gain through it. And by the time we look back, it's too late for many. Of course, it is said, better late than never. But Srila Prabhupada said, You heard this saying, it was very accurate. He said, it's very difficult to bend old bamboo. Have any of you ever tried? You know, Srila Prabhupada, when he would say these things, I would always try it. Because I'm like an experimenter, just to see what is Prabhupada really talking about. I don't want to understand it theoretically, I want to see it practically. Like last night I was explaining. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami said that I am lower than a worm in stool. That's pretty theoretical for someone, you know. How can you feel lower than a worm in stool? You know, before you can feel lower than a worm in stool, you have to understand what's the lifestyle of a worm in stool. So I really, really wanted to learn this. And by Krishna's grace, I found worms in my own stool. So I actually made a study of their lifestyle. I really did. I was watching. What do they do all day? This is a confession. And I came to the conclusion that I am really puffed up. How could I feel lower than them? Their whole life is just slippering around in stool. And you take them out and they go right back in. It's abominable. And Prabhupada said Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was not just saying this, he meant it. Haribo. So there are many such experiments. And Prabhupada talked about old and new bamboo. If you try to bend old bamboo, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. And if you really, 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 really struggle and strain, it breaks. It doesn't bend. It bends just a tiny bit with great effort, then it breaks. But new bamboo, you can make all kinds of chairs and furniture and everything. Twist it any way you like. Because it's green, it's young. Srila Prabhupada explained human psychology is the same. It's not a matter of the body, it's the matter of the psychology of a person, the mind of a person. When we're young, we're flexible, we're open for very new ideas, and we have an enthusiasm to make a big difference in the world. But when we get older, we just become very inflexible in our ability to really accept new ideas. So Pandava Sena is something very, very wonderful because it is especially the youth sharing with each other the gift of Krishna consciousness and with the sangam of each other to try to give Krishna to others. Actually, even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, except for Advaita Acharya and Srivas Pandit, almost all of his devotees were young, teenagers in their 20s. Gadadhar Pandit, Lord Chaitanya himself, when he came back from Gaya. And what they did, they broke open the storehouse of love of God and tasted it, then distributed the contents profusely. And some of us, we were young, and we took to bhakti. But now we're old, and soon you're going to be old too. And when you get old, you'll think back what I could have done when I was young. Hare Krishna. But you can do it now. You have everything. And that is the greatest blessing. to make such a tremendous difference in your own life, to develop such a strong spiritual foundation, and to perform what Lord Chaitanya called para upakar, the highest welfare work. Anybody who has a pious heart knows how important welfare is to others. Because everything is the property of God, and every living being is the child of God. And whatever we have, it's not meant for us. What God entrusts us to, He expects us to share it with as many of His children as possible. And Srila Prabhupada, he explains the higher and higher concepts of love in the Nectar of Devotion. Love becomes more satisfying, and love becomes more rich to the degree it expands to touch other people's lives. To love one's family is good, but it becomes more satisfying and more complete and more inclusive if it expands to one's nation, to one's race, to humanity, to all living beings. Love becomes pure according to how that love is expanded toward others. And if we water the root of the tree, automatically, if we offer our love to Krishna, it's spontaneously, naturally, that love is extended toward every living being. From the bamboo tree to the worm and stool. To every type of human, every type of animal, every type of insect. Now, I don't know how many of you love insects, but if you love Krishna, you'll love the soul within that insect. You'll see a brother or a sister in that insect. You'll see Krishna, His child, in that situation. That is love. And therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, to give love of Krishna to the world is the greatest need. It's the highest expression of love. It's the greatest degree of compassion. Because everyone is longing for Krishna, but have forgotten. What more beautiful life is there than nourishing the body, the mind, and the soul of others by giving them Krishna consciousness? It is so beautiful, and there is nothing so satisfying to the heart than to see another person being moved to love Krishna and knowing that we are somehow or other being used as an instrument for that to take place. There is no more satisfying cricket match. Better than Great Britain winning the World Cup. Better than becoming a millionaire or a billionaire. There is no greater experience than to feel that we are an instrument of Guru and Krishna to inspire another person's heart to be attracted to Krishna. It's the ultimate experience for the soul. Because in giving we receive. Pandava Sena is a very, very important, significant movement within a movement. And what is so beautiful about it is the spontaneous enthusiasm I see amongst so many of you. Hungry to taste the holy name. Hungry to taste prasad. It's just now coming. Hungry to play the mridanga, to play the harmonium, to play the kartals, to dance, to associate with devotees, to hear lectures, to read books, to distribute books, to preach. It's just beautiful. My humble request is be enthusiastic, enthuse each other, and enthuse the world. Because Pandava Sena really does have the capacity to make a significant difference in this world. Because all the future leaders of society are your age now. If you could reach more and more, and if you're united, if you're really united, Krishna's blessings will make your Sangam so powerful to attract others. Srila Prabhupada also told us that when we're given something very great, along with it comes a great responsibility. It's like in the world, if you're big, to the degree you're given a big post, whether it's in a company or in the government or in a family, along with that position comes bigger and bigger responsibilities. When Srila Prabhupada gave us Krishna consciousness, along with it he gave us the ultimate responsibility in all of the world. Now that you know about Krishna, now that you understand the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, it is your responsibility to practice it, to perfect your lives, and to help others to perfect their lives. To sustain those who are already devotees, enthuse them so that they'll attain perfection, and to bring more and more and more in. Do you remember the first words of Srivas Thakur when he found out that Nimai Pandit became a devotee? You know, Nimai Pandit was a very naughty person. He was a great scholar, but he harassed the devotees in a very sweet way. He would just challenge them to grammatical arguments. And the devotees, they hated talking about anything except Krishna. They hated hearing about anything except Krishna. It was just a waste of precious time. And he would sometimes literally grab them by the hand, wouldn't let them go, and just ask them about verbal roots. And whatever they'd say, he would defeat. And then he would defeat whatever he said, and ask them to defeat that. And then he would defeat whatever they said. And they would just be thinking in their minds, I want to run away, but I can't get away. So eventually all the devotees, they would practically all day and all night, they would do kirtan, just praying to Lord Vishnu, please make Nimai a devotee. Because we love him so much. We love him like we love Krishna. But we can't tolerate being with him either. We can't tolerate being without him, and we can't tolerate being with him. Make him a devotee, so that we could be with him always. And when he came back from Gaya, completely intoxicated with ecstatic love after taking initiation from Ishvara Puri, he was feeling such deep, intense separation from Krishna. And the devotees who witnessed Lord Chaitanya, they went to Srivas Thakur and said, we have the most extraordinary news that you will ever hear in your life. Srivas Pandit, what is that? He said, Nimai Pandit is a devotee. We have never seen ecstatic love as we see in his heart and in his body. And Srivas Thakur, all their prayers had been fulfilled. And the first words he said was, now that Nimai Pandit is a devotee, let our family expand. Because he knew Nimai Pandit, the power of his knowledge, the power of his attraction, the power of his personality could attract thousands and thousands and thousands of people to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, when he was walking down Fifth Avenue in 1965, he was living in the Bowery, a ghetto. He had no money. He had nothing. Just had this little pair of plastic shoes in the winter of New York. And he would see stretch limousines, Cadillacs and Mercedes and Rolls Royce from England. And Prabhupada would have tears in his eyes, just feeling so sorry for these people because they were so poor without Krishna. How can I expand Lord Chaitanya's family? By giving Krishna to others. That is the real joy. And to the degree we take this responsibility seriously, we will find such deep fulfillment in our lives, and we will please Krishna in such a way that Krishna will empower us to do amazing things. Prabhupada often said, you make advancement in spiritual life according to how you take responsibility. And there are various types of responsibility. One is responsibility for our own personal purification. That is a serious responsibility. If we don't take this responsibility, we won't make advancement much. To chant the holy names sincerely, attentively. If we're aspiring to make very rapid advancement, we should be chanting at least 16 rounds every day. Or at least trying to gain to that stage. And we're able to do it when we take responsibility. Personal. Following the 4 regulative principles. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating. Here in London, when Swami Ban Maharaj talked to Lord Jetland, he said, Swamiji, how can I become Brahmin? He said, you just do these 4 things. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating. And here is this British lord. He said, huh? How will I live? How can anyone live without these things? But to take responsibility. And that's what initiation really is about. When you take a vow, you're really taking a serious responsibility. Besides just connecting us through grace to the Parampara, it's very important for us to have a formal responsibility in our spiritual lives. Take responsibility for our morality, take responsibility for our sadhana, and take responsibility for our character and good behavior. We're responsible for what we say. We're responsible for what we do. And we're responsible to how we affect other people. Even if you're not a devotee, the laws of karma make you responsible. But you grow when you take the responsibility seriously. Srila Prabhupada said purity is the force. And there's really no force besides that. The force of each and every one of us and the fourth of our mission is according to how each individual takes responsibility to become pure. And we take responsibility for the mission. Srila Prabhupada's wonderful mission. And Pandava Sena is a very, very important part of Srila Prabhupada's mission. In my opinion, it's more important than many of the temples. Because it's a spontaneous group of enthused people who really want to reach out to others and enjoy Krishna consciousness, taste the nectar of the holy name, and spread it to others. It's wonderful. The potential is amazing. The potential is unlimited. It can be a Hare Krishna explosion. Definitely. It's just a matter of how much you take responsibility and are enthusiastic. Haribo. The times today, in this 21st century, people are more ripe for Krishna consciousness than in the 60s and 70s. They are, definitely. All that's required is especially youth to have that enthusiasm to inspire each other and then inspire the world. There's no limits if we're empowered by Lord Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. So to take responsibility to each other, to enliven each other, to protect each other, to befriend each other, to make each other happy. It's very easy to fight. And that's something that's universal to all ages. In the age of Kali, whether you're an old man or woman, or whether you're a little boy fighting like Hanuman, or whether you're teenagers or in your 20s, that propensity to fight is there. We have a responsibility to forgive each other, to tolerate each other, to learn to love each other as devotees. And that comes naturally when we have an attitude of servant toward each other. That's all that's required. If you just have that humble attitude of service toward others, you'll find how much you love other people. Because love grows through that service attitude. The other day was Christmas. One thing that Jesus said, he said, if you cannot love each other, who you are seeing every day, how will you love God, who you cannot see? That's a principle. Srila Prabhupada said, you can show your love for me by how you cooperate. If you can't love the Vaishnavas, you cannot love Krishna. And what does it mean to love the Vaishnavas? Love has to be practical. If there was one thing Prabhupada did not endorse, it was anything impractical. If you came with a theory to Prabhupada, he would test it by seeing how you did it in a practical way. And it is practical. Krishna consciousness is absolutely practical. If we have that service attitude, our affection, our love for each other grows. But service attitude means sacrificing of ourselves to uplift, give pleasure, give enthusiasm to others. That is our responsibility to each other. When somebody's down, we all come together to pick them up. And when we're down, we reach out knowing that we need shelter. And we take responsibility together to serve what Srila Prabhupada, what was most dear to his heart, giving Krishna to others. And many of you here are mentors or mentees. As for me, I'm mental. But being a mentor is one of the most beautiful opportunities to advance in Krishna consciousness, because it means taking responsibility to help others to be uplifted. It's so precious. But we make advancement and succeed as mentors when we take it as a responsibility. That means we have to be responsible to purify ourselves, we have to be responsible to be a good example, and we have to be an example of extending ourselves for others. Shruti Dharma Prabhu and Pranabandhu Prabhu. They are like mentor acharyas. Yes? Amazing what they do. How strict they are in their own spiritual lives, year after year after year, and how they extend themselves immensely, taking such responsibility to help others. Oftentimes when there's difficulties or when there's attacks, it's easy to run away. It takes a person really, really responsible to fight for the truth. And these two personalities I have been watching over the years, nothing will stop them. They just have such a deep, genuine sense of responsibility. And how many lives they've affected because of that. So we take inspiration from people like this. My dear God brother Tredas Prabhu, who really should be talking instead of me. When I was just coming to Krishna consciousness, he was a temple president, running temples. Boston, one of the most important temples. He took at such a young age such serious responsibilities. And he's been serving Prabhupada responsibly, distributing books. He was a Sankirtan leader. Now he's just opened up a temple in Bologna, Italy. He's in an age when most people would retire. He and his wife, Krishna Loka Devi, they have just been serving, year after year after year, with such enthusiasm. It's beautiful. So we have so many. We have hundreds and hundreds of beautiful examples. So this is what will make the Pandava Sena such a spiritually satisfying sangam of people that will attract so many, is when we take responsibility for our own spiritual purification, we take responsibility for each other, and we take responsibility as a group to help each other to reach out to the world. And the mentors are like, they're supposed to be the examples that really give hope and enthusiasm for others to follow. And that is a serious responsibility. If you're a mentor, you are representing Radha Gokulananda, representing the Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, representing Srila Prabhupada. It's a good responsibility. I don't want to scare you. But I do want to enthuse you and give you an understanding of how really, really fortunate you are. Don't be afraid of commitment. Commitment to a good thing is the greatest thing you could do in your life. Cowardly people are afraid to make a commitment. Hare Krishna. But serious people are eager to make commitment to something that is great. So I sincerely congratulate all of you. You are creating something extraordinary. And I am happy that I can have the opportunity this evening to make some effort to serve you. Thank you very much. Would you like to say anything, Tridas Prabhu? Very, very convenient. But it's true, he did lose his voice in the back of the call.
But still I can say something.
Please, can we give him a microphone?
So Maharaj was mentioning in the beginning how, in the beginning of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's movement, he engaged so many youth who, up until 90 years old, they kept that same enthusiasm, preaching Krishna consciousness. So Maharaj is an example, an inspiration in that regard. That
I thought you had a sore throat. You couldn't.
Something happened and it just came out. So even after so many of our God brothers, they may be doing other things. I was just talking to one God brother before I came to this program, and how Maharaj is such an example of that we should aspire for, that now we're 20, but when we're over 50, that we can still be enthusiastically engaged in preaching with this, and that will keep you eternally young. That's the way. If you want to remain eternally young, no one wants to get old. I can tell you, it's not pleasant at all to get old. Everyone starts talking about their diseases and their aches and pains and all these problems.
The texture of their stool also.
So many horrible things.
I should start losing my voice.
It's true though. It's true. So if you want to stay eternally youthful, then by spreading Krishna consciousness, dedicating your life to spreading Krishna consciousness, you'll always feel like you're still 20 years old, even though the body does what it's supposed to do normally, but you'll always remain young and not become blocked in an old age. Because like Maharaj was saying, that some people are even when they're young, they're old. Even when their bodily may be young, but if they're in a limited mentality of thinking just about themselves and their material security and arrangements, then they become old already in youth. But if you want to maintain eternal youth, and then by dedicating yourself to spreading Krishna consciousness, it's always better and more enthusing and ever fresh. It'll never get stale or old. It's not like, well, that was something that happened in the 60s or in the 70s, and now things are changed, or times are changed, and it's not possible now. We can see that that's not true. That's another trick of Maya to make us think that it's not possible now. Prabhupada was once, some devotees had spread a rumor that Prabhupada said that soon police suppression will come and we won't be able to distribute books and things will, and Prabhupada was very, very angry. He said, "Who said that in my name? This is not true. The things will go on, and Prabhupada said, you should make a lifetime commitment to distributing my books and spreading Krishna consciousness. Don't think that it will be stopped by any change of sociological situation or times. It's just as fresh now as it was 40 years ago or 30 years ago. There's no time limit. And Maharaj is an example of that. He's always youthful, ever fresh. So we may pray that we can be as ever fresh if we want, if we can study his life, if he'll one day finish writing this account of his life, and we'll see how you can dedicate your life to spreading Krishna consciousness. Take that example.
He is seeing the whole world as a mirror of his own consciousness.
I just always got the answer. I've never seen Maharaj once not have the right thing to say. The right, it's the wrong thing, but in that sense, in one sense. But you should have done Sankirtan, Maharaj. Just imagining if you doing Sankirtan in a much bigger way. Would have been good.
I distribute cookies sometimes.
You distribute the contents of the books worldwide. So.
Thank you very much, Radhanath Swami. Shruti Dharmaji Prabhu, would you like to speak something?
Tamal Krishna Goswami was speaking on this principle that Maharaj was speaking about responsibility. And at one class at the manor he was saying how when he was being given more and more responsibility he was complaining to Srila Prabhupada about how more and more responsibility was coming his way, and Prabhupada answered with a very profound statement which he said always stuck out in his mind whenever he took on more and more responsibility. And that was, to the degree that you take up responsibility, to that degree you will make advancement. So Maharaj was stressing today on that principle, that we have all the mentors here who are taking responsibility. So unless we do take responsibility, actually, we'll carry on advancing somehow or the other, but if we really want to advance, then responsibility is the key issue. Because it means we're actually seriously taking up the mission. Or as Jadvaita Swami would put it, we're on the outside of the football pitch, cheering everyone on, but we don't want to get onto the football pitch. So when we take on responsibility, we actually get onto the football pitch. We actually start playing the game at that stage. Until then, we're just cheering everyone on. We can go home afterwards and not worry. after the match is over. But if you're playing, then you're actually making a real commitment to the game. So Jadaveda Swami was giving that analogy as well. And change really begins with each one of us, as Maharaj was speaking, to take responsibility personally first. I'm reminded of a story of Sandeep told me that story a long time ago. Of the Anglican Archbishop. I'm looking at Sandeep and he reminded me of that story. The Anglican Archbishop.
Which Sandeep? This one. He is very deep.
His story, he told me, was of the Anglican Archbishop, true story, of how when he became the Archbishop, he was so enthusiastic that he said, I want to change the whole world. And we're all like that as well. We think we want to change the whole world. And we're young, and we want to change the world. At least I hope we all are. We want to change the world. So the Anglican Archbishop, he was so enthusiastic, he said, I want to change the world. And after many years, he realized he couldn't change the world. So then he decided, well, at least let me change my country. So after many years, he tried and tried and tried, and then he said, actually, it was very difficult to change my country. Then he thought, at least let me change my family.
Very difficult.
As you may all have experienced.
Country seems easier to me. From a sannyasi perspective.
So he tried to change his family. As Maharaj had said, he also decided that he couldn't even change his own family. So then he concluded, the Anglican Archbishop, that the only thing that he could change in this world is himself. And if he started with himself, if he changed himself, then he could change the world. So that principle is there, beginning with each one of us, that we will definitely change the world, but alongside we have to change ourselves. Then very much will change the entire world. And definitely Radhanath Swami is encouraging each one of us, and through his enthusiasm, to also change the world. He's from a very young age, from 16, he definitely has affected many people's lives, a tremendous number of people's lives. So we can look at that as an example and try and be a drop of that example. And I'm very happy that this evening we have not only the new Pandava Sena chairman, but the previous one, Yuvi, is also here. And I've seen Naveen Krishna running up and down the corridors. And we're very, very happy that all the way from Canada, Sandipan Krishna Prabhu is here. So all the chairmans are here. Let's have 3 Hari Bols for all of them. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! The lineage carries on. Gauranga Prabhu, go ahead.
Take questions.
Okay, the first question is, will Govinda please speak? Will Gauranga Prabhu please speak?
I would just like to share how Maharaj inspired the youth preaching in Chopati. This was way back in 1995-96. And we had a group of few brahmacharis, and he was very much insisting that we should start preaching in the colleges. So we gradually started preaching in the campuses, and practically most of the college programs we did, we were banned. Because strangely in India, although it is a land of dharma, as Maharaj was saying, he was giving lectures in college classrooms. Practically most of us have never ever given lectures in college classrooms because we are not allowed. Hare Krishna is not allowed inside college campuses.
Not only that, every class I was doing for 8 years practically, 6 classes a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Every class began with kirtan, mridangas, kartals, kirtan, then lecture, then questions, answers, then book distribution, then prasad. Right in the class. But in India, they don't allow.
Yeah. That's the problem.
It's not a problem. It's just a special added feature.
So somehow we tried to do something by having programs in students' rooms, sometimes secretly, sometimes in other ways. In last 10-12 years, the programs have been going on. And now we have some nice facilities outside the college campuses where students can come together and congregate. And in this way, gradually the youth preaching has grown. So my personal experience has been that, as Maharaj said, when we cultivate them when they are really young, they definitely commit themselves to the process of Krishna consciousness. And now we have more than 600 boys in Bombay alone chanting 16 rounds. And every month we have this Prerna festival. And in these youth festivals, 700 to 1,000 boys, they come together. And we have also for girls, the Chaitanya festival. So through this, there has been a tremendous amount of emphasis on preaching to the youth in the last many years. And we also have educations in value education programs in schools. So that is the first time where we have been officially invited, ISKCON has been officially invited to present Krishna consciousness in schools all over Mumbai, because the education department is realizing that as Kali Yuga is progressing, it's practically impossible to control the children. So they introduced a subject called value education, but they couldn't find anyone to teach because most of them had no idea what that was all about. So devotees developed a nice curriculum and they are making that presentation in colleges. And through that we developed another new project, which is distributing food in various schools where the children cannot afford even proper meals. So the midday meal scheme program started through that. So many wonderful things have happened since we began this endeavor to spread in amongst the student community. So I'm very happy that all of you are trying your level best. And we have one medical college, the name of the college is JJ Medical College. And we would always be banned there. And so Maharaj said that actually that JJ college is Jai Jagannath. So whatever may happen there, I said I can't go in saffron. This was many years back because the warden doesn't allow us. So Maharaj said, you wear pant shirt and go. Change your dress and do whatever, but you should continue preaching. So from there, so many wonderful devotees have come, or doctors. So obstacles were there, but by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and so many other devotees, things are going on. I'm very impressed with the way Pandava Sena programs are being conducted. I went to the Jamin the other day. They have really fantastic prasad after the whole program. I mean, it's very impressive, and it is all made in devotees' homes.
I would expect you to take note of that.
I mean, we have temple cooks, we have such facilities, and they cook at homes and bring together. It's pretty difficult to organize things. So I was quite impressed with the way things are organized for more than 100, 150 people cooking at home. It's not so easy.
To impress Gauranga Prabhu is a very great accomplishment.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Govinda Prabhu. Huh?
He spoke everything.
You could speak something more of everything. Govinda Prabhu is so loved by the youth that parents who cannot discipline their children, they say, if you don't do this, I will tell Govinda Prabhu. And the children will immediately do everything they say. This is true, it is not exaggeration.
Hare Krishna. It's very amazing to see. When we were discussing this just few days back in one village, like if one young person becomes a devotee, if the parents become devotees, the children don't take it seriously. They see something is doing, becoming old, so naturally he'll do some spiritual practices. But if the young person takes to devotional service, he creates a revolution in the family. And by becoming one people, like we had some devotees becoming, boys becoming devotees, and the whole village they would transfer. Like we have our farm center in Bombay, about 100 kilometers away from Bombay. And they became devotees in the town. They went to their village, and hundreds of people are becoming devotees. Just by seeing young people taking to Krishna consciousness. It's like where I come from, small town. One devotee. And when we would sit and talk about, practicing devotional service, 3-4 people. And now they have a Ratha Yatra and 40,000 people come there. Yeah. And that is the power of one young person.
That's because the person is you.
Wrong statistics, wrong information. Somebody. So that is the power of preaching by the young people.
Who does everyone believe?
Hare Krishna.
No, continue.
I said, Maharaj, finished. So Pandava Sena is also amazing. We remember Sunit and our Sandeep Prabhu, they are the first to, of course Devesh came first to our temple many years back. He's also a very dynamic preacher. Then Sunit and Sandeep came. And then other devotees came, Vijay, Mehul and who else? Ravit came. And then slowly many devotees are coming and they're inspiring us. And it's very inspiring to see here how many young people are practicing and preaching Krishna consciousness. Jai Pandava Sena ki Jai.
Very well. The rest of the world is the Kuru Sena. Even though the Pandavas were outnumbered, they had Krishna on their side. Would anyone like to ask any questions? Yes, Prabhu.
I had read a statement you had made, and you had said that life is very boring when you think it's your own, and I found that to be a very beautiful statement. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that, please.
I can try. I just hope I don't bore you. Hari Hari. Hare Krishna. When we think that we are the doer of our activities, and we're trying to do what we're trying to do for ourselves, it's an altogether different experience than when we see, then we search. If you search, you will see the hand of God behind everything. If we simply surrender ourselves to be an instrument of the Lord in whatever we're doing, then we actually can see miracles everywhere taking place. And that is supremely exciting, exhilarating to the heart, to see God's miracles, God's mercy everywhere. In comparison, just doing what you're supposed to do the way you can do it with a nice schedule is quite boring. Srila Prabhupada explained to Shyam Sundar Prabhu that to the degree you're willing to take risks for Krishna, you will see Krishna. That's how all of us in the United Kingdom have come to Krishna consciousness. Because these grihastas, Shyam Sundar, Malati, Mukunda Maharaj, Janaki, Guru Das Prabhu, Yamuna Prabhu, they took a risk. They didn't have a plan. Their plan was to take whatever risk was necessary and to just let Krishna work. And how Krishna worked, how miracles. Can you imagine? It's impossible to believe for somebody who brought up in the 60s, for 6 people with no money and no contacts, to come to England, and within a few months, they're living in John Lennon's house with the Beatles. And George Harrison on Apple Records, the most famous record company in the planet, the Beatles record company, is producing their records. How did that happen? They just took risks for Krishna. They understood that only Krishna could do this. We're the instruments, and let Krishna work. And then miracle after miracle after miracle. And I, as small and lowly as I am, I've seen this in my own life. When you just when you just try your level best, but you're really leaving it to Prabhupada and Krishna, then you see miracles happening all around you, and even miracles happening through you. Haribol. It's eternally exhilarating to the soul to just let Krishna work through us and to see how Krishna performs his wonderful, wonderful miracles. And wherever Krishna consciousness really spreads, it's because devotees have that spirit. Institutions are important. And Prabhupada wanted institution in order to preserve the standards, preserve the right philosophy, preserve the right culture. But if we become too institutionalized, in a way that we become too bureaucratic, and just, this is the way you have to do it, and this is the way it has to be maintained, it's usually just people growing old together. Trying to maintain. But where there is that exhilarating spirit of just, let's go out, let's take risks, let's be spontaneous, and let's, within the borders of being Krishna conscious, we have the 4 regular principles, and we shana rounds, and we have our philosophy, but within the realms of that, when we have a spontaneous thirst and an urge to take risks and do something just amazing, something beyond what we can do, then miracles take place through us. And that wherever that excitement is where Krishna consciousness really spreads, and where devotees are blissful. Does that answer your question? How do you all? Is there any other questions? Yes, Prabhu.
It's like when I first came personally, I had that kind of enthusiasm to preach and go out there and give it, right? But I think after a while you start taking, like, you get married, you get a job, you start taking everything seriously. And then you kind of lose it, but then you have to start turning around and purifying yourself, but before you didn't really have to do that. What's kind of happening?
That is a blessing. That is a blessing. As we grow in our Krishna consciousness, various challenges and tests come in our life. And if we just make the right choices, how much we grow through that experience. Most important thing is we take that responsibility for our own purification and for others as well. And if you're a married man, obviously the responsibilities may have different forms. It may be in a different setting, but the spirit can remain exactly the same. Be enthusiastic in your own sadhana. Be enthusiastic in your service to the Vaishnavas. Be enthusiastic to help your family to love Krishna. Because when we act enthusiastic, enthusiasm naturally takes over our consciousness. And with that enthusiastic, life is so exciting. And Krishna reveals himself everywhere to us. It's beautiful. So don't lose heart. The transition between just a free-wheeling student and a responsible grihasta is a serious transition. But don't lose the essence of your life in that transition. Make the adjustments and keep that essence, keep that enthusiasm very much burning in your heart. And nice sadhana, nice association, and that enthusiastic effort will reveal Krishna to you in everything. Certainly. Does that answer your question? Yes.
Oftentimes we come together as devotees and we engage in some of in the devotional processes, but how can we really develop a sense of unity and strength in kind of our relationships so that we can kind of go forward and really, really care for each other, really, really kind of have that genuine sense of concern for each other? That, at least for me personally, I find that it's still very superficial. So I have to kind of make that more concrete and more real.
Did everyone hear his question? It's a very excellent question. Could you ask it in microphone?
Hare Krishna. Oftentimes we come together as devotees to engage in the devotional process, chanting and so forth. But I still find that, for me personally, it's very hard to genuinely care for the people around me, genuinely have concern for them, and I just wanted to know what would be the best way to kind of develop this concern and care for each other, to make it more real and make it more concrete.
Hare Krishna. Compassion for others is not cheap. We have to express to Krishna our sincerity to have it. When Krishna sees we are actually sincere, we're praying for it, we're making great efforts to live by it, even if our mind and senses are resisting, then Krishna sees that we are sincere. And then Krishna rewards us with that compassion. We want to develop a unity of love and trust. Srila Prabhupada explained that the Hare Krishna movement is like an automobile that's moving forward. And the oil that keeps all the parts working together without friction, yes, is love and trust. In an automobile, if you don't put oil, all the different parts start scraping each other and destroying each other. And sometimes we see that amongst devotees. They're supposed to be working together as a unit to carry on Lord Chaitanya's movement. Prabhupada said there is no power of Maya outside of our movement that can hamper our progress. It is only when Maya strikes from within that we can be hampered. And the two main ways that Maya strikes from within is by creating complacency or laziness to follow the regulative principles and to take shelter of the holy name and to read Prabhupada's books. That complacency is Maya striking. And the second is when she creates quarrel and hypocrisy amongst devotees. When there's petty ego differences. And there will be petty ego differences. Do not think because you have taken to Krishna consciousness there will not be petty ego differences. There will be. Until you're in Vaikuntha, there will be. But Krishna consciousness is the way to deal with it, so that you grow and you come closer to God through that situation. So love and trust is the oil that we require. Now what if we don't have love? And what if we don't have so much trust? Then what do we do? Hare Krishna. We have to gain it. And how do we gain it? By Krishna's grace. In other words, even if we feel animosity toward another, I often give an example in my own experience. When I first came to a particular community, I was asked to milk cows. Hare Krishna. And the person who I had to milk cows with was so different from me that I can't say I hated him. But I just didn't want anything to do with him. And I know as a fact he felt the same way about me. I used to think, before I was a devotee, this type of person is the person I would never have anything to do with. And he thought the same way about me. But we had to milk the same cow together. In fact, 8 cows together. He was on one side and I was on the other. So we did all 4 parts at the same. At the beginning, probably the only reason there was, because the cow was between us, there was some sort of peace. But one thing we both did, even though we really just, I can't say I didn't like him, I just couldn't stand him. There is a subtle difference between the two. Have any of you ever had problems like that amongst each other? This is the way he talked, the way he moved. This is the kind of person I was rebelling against, So, but we were both there to serve Prabhupada and Krishna. So somehow or other we understood there's a higher principle besides these temporary, personal, egoistic differences. There is a higher principle. And what is the higher principle? That we're serving our Guru Maharaj together. We're serving Krishna together. Prabhupada told a story about how the Guru is taking massage and the two disciples are massaging each side and they're both envious of each other. So one reaches over to the other side and scratches the father to make it seem like the other disciple did it. And the other person reaches over and pinches the Guru. And the other... I'm not going to go into any more details. But who's hurt? The Guru's hurt. There's nothing that hurt Prabhupada more than your principle. And within a year, we were best friends for the rest of our lives. There was such deep love and deep trust and deep respect that we had for each other. It was unbelievable. We would do anything for each other, spontaneously, because it was earned. Principle above our own egoistic differences, Krishna and Prabhupada blessed us. We earned love for each other. We earned trust for each other. We earned a lifelong friendship. So we may not feel, but sometimes Prabhupada would say, when devotees say, I don't feel I like this person, or Prabhupada would say, who cares what you feel? This is all the mind. What's important is what you're aspiring for and how you're aspiring for it. Yes, everybody has their own false egos, and it's the age of Kali. How will we ever work together? But if we want to show Krishna that I want to really be a caring, loving devotee toward other Vaishnavas, then we should pray for that. We should long for that. We should chant the holy names, hoping that Krishna will give us that. And then we should act like that, even if we don't feel like that. Materialistic people do it. An airline hostess in an airplane. Sometimes she sees somebody and she doesn't like the way he looks, she doesn't like the way he smells, she doesn't like anything about that person. But does the airline hostess say, "Get out of my face"? No, the airline hostess says, "Would you like some more water? Sir, would you like some more food? Is there anything I can do for you?" Why? Because she'll lose her job if she doesn't. She's getting paid. If an airline hostess is willing to show kindness to someone she doesn't like for money, why can't we do it for other devotees to receive Krishna and Prabhupada's blessing? And in doing it, Krishna actually fills our heart with real compassion and real love. So don't worry about how you feel, because it's a higher principle. We should serve the Vaishnavas. We should be kind to the Vaishnavas. We should help the Vaishnavas. And when we all have that spirit, then our satsang, then our sangam becomes Vaikuntha. And it becomes real. It's not just a theory. It's proven. Just serve with that sincerity and Krishna gives you the relationship, which is something extraordinary. Does that answer your question? Haribo. And to the degree each devotee is taking that responsibility to be there for each other in that way, it becomes a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful society of Vaishnavas. And if the mentors don't do it with each other, then there's big problems. It is very important. Mentors are supposed to be leading by example. The mentors should not only extend themselves toward their mentees, or the mentols, but it is equally important that the mentors show loving relationships amongst each other. In our little temple in Bombay, this is one of the greatest emphasis that we have. That the counselors, it's much easier for the counselors to really have nice relationships with their counselees than with each other. And even senior brahmacharis. Each brahmachari is their counselors. They have brahmacharis under them for training. There's not so much problem training them, but the senior brahmacharis to actually develop real, genuine relationships with each other. So we have put tremendous emphasis that the counselors actually not only tolerate each other, but develop real relationships in Krishna consciousness with each other, both amongst the grihastas and the brahmacharis, because it sets the standard by which everyone else will understand how to relate to each other. Yes, we put a lot of emphasis. The senior brahmacharis every month, they just go away, only each other, to our farm community for, 3-4 days? With no agenda except just to be together. They're not allowed to talk about management or projects. They just together. And it's not easy at the beginning, but it's getting better. Because if you invest, Krishna helps. And also the counselors, they do the same. The husbands, the wives, they all come together amongst other counselors and go on picnics and so many other things just to really develop relationships. And if we have the sincere desire to do so, and we act according to that desire, Krishna gives us the realization, Krishna gives us the higher taste, and Krishna gives us the means by which we can fulfill that desire. And that is the magic of Krishna consciousness. If we're just sincere to do the right thing, how Krishna performs his magic to fulfill it. It's beyond you, it's beyond me. And that's what makes Krishna consciousness so exciting. To see how Krishna can do so much beyond all of us, if we're just willing. Is there one more? Yes? Yes? I don't know either. Prabhu looked so shy. He held a microphone, but he didn't say anything.
Maharaj, a few months ago we had a program, Pandava Sena gathering, and Buddha Bhavana Prabhu was explaining something very nicely. He was quoting Bhakti-tirtha Maharaj, and he was explaining that devotees often, where externally we have a lot of productivity, we do many things, but we see that advancement is very small because we're not working internally. And I was reflecting on what he was saying, and I was feeling in my own life that 99% of the time I'm doing my service to look great, and maybe 1%, if that, I'm actually trying to achieve something great for Krishna's pleasure, for the pleasure of the devotees. And so I was thinking that I wanted to ask your advice, that how can we develop the proper mood when we're doing devotional service, because I see in my own life that I'm very external, that just looking for results, and sometimes we have a fear that we're just doing many things, but at any moment we could just fall down because we're not working internally on the heart. So I wanted to ask your advice on how we constantly check and introspect within ourselves to make sure that we always remain within the movement.
Hare Krishna. Sincerely asking that question is a very important beginning. Everything begins with a desire. Yes, generally when we begin Krishna consciousness, we're enthusiastic to do many things, but they are quite externally done, quite superficially done, but we don't think they are. But as we start making progress, a lot of that external veneer comes off, and then we realize there's nothing inside. Yes? And we think, maybe I was more advanced when I was a new devotee. Yes, more surrendered. But Krishna strips away superficialities. And then we actually have to face who we really are, what our real motives are. And that's actually very healthy. We have to desire that. Krishna consciousness is not about getting things done. It's about how we get them done. One of my favorite quotes of Srila Prabhupada is from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Prabhupada says, Krishna does not see what you offer him. Krishna sees the purpose in which it is offered. That is bhakti. Duryodhana was shooting a bow and arrow. Arjuna was shooting a bow and arrow. They were doing the same thing. Duryodhana's purpose was for his own greed. Arjuna's purpose was out of love for Krishna, to do Krishna's will. Yes, bhakti is about the purpose. We should focus on that. Nasta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya. And that is why every day we must hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, either in classes or reading the books, to remind us. Because what's in Srila Prabhupada's books, he doesn't tell us so much what we're supposed to do. He tells us that. But the emphasis of what Prabhupada's talking about is how we're supposed to do it internally. Yes? All of our acharyas, and Srila Prabhupada has taken the essence of all the acharyas to present Krishna consciousness. It's about our internal state of how we're supposed to do things. That's why it is very important to hear classes. But not just hear it as formality. Because two people could be in the same class, two people could be reading the same page from Srila Prabhupada's book, but have an altogether different experience. Why? What are you looking for? Some people have a political agenda that they want to prove, and they read Prabhupada's books, and they get the evidence for their political agenda, and that's all they get out of it. Other people read Prabhupada's books because they have to give a class and they want to make a nice show for people. So they get some good information, they make a nice show, and that's what they get out of it. Other people read Prabhupada's books because they really, really feel a great need to learn, to grow, to be humble, to love Krishna, to be a real devotee. And Krishna and Prabhupada will reveal on every page how to do that. So when we go to classes, we should go to these classes understanding that I have a desperate need for my purification to attend this class and to learn. When we go to Srila Prabhupada's books, I have a desperate need. I'm so fallen to be rescued by Srila Prabhupada's words and learn what it really means to be a Vaishnava. If you read with that spirit regularly, Krishna will speak to you and change your heart. What is our purpose? And when we're rendering service, is our purpose to look good? Where in the Shastras does it say that we should look good? Our purpose is to please Krishna, to please Guru, to please the Vaishnavas. If that's what we want, even if we don't have that desire, we desire that desire. If that's what we want, and we're regularly taking to the process, then we become purified through that. Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is not a mechanical process. We have to put our heart into it. And what does it mean to put our heart into it? That we're really praying and desiring the right thing. What Prabhupada wants to give us. Yes, it's very important. Don't be content just getting some nice results. Be striving to really become humble, to really become pure in our service attitude, and pray and long and beg to love Krishna. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, many of his books were called The Beggar. The Beggar 1, The Beggar 2, I think The Beggar 4 was the last one. The Beggar. He was a transcendentally pure, great soul. And he's in everything he's doing, he's begging Krishna for humility, for love, for self-control, for devotion. That's what he's teaching us. If you're a beggar, nothing's a formality. A beggar feels need, right? If you're actually begging, that means you're really in need. Maharaj Parikshit, when he sat in the bank of the Ganges for 7 days, he was begging to hear about Krishna at every moment. That is important. And we can do it. It's just a matter of understanding that is the process and putting the effort. And as they say, God helps those who help themselves. In Krishna consciousness, that is ultimately true. That if we have the right desire and we cultivate that desire, Krishna will be there to help us in every way. And I think it's very late. And I think Prasad is waiting. And I think we should also have kirtan before Prasad. What time is it? 9:30. That's not too late, is it? For Pandava Senas, that's quite early, I think. I remember when I was recovering from my surgery, Gauranga Prabhu went to one of your Jamin sessions, is what they're called? Jamin? What does Jamin mean? Huh? Jamin? Anyways. Jamin means come together? Is that like a British way of saying it? Okay, well, he...
Local train in Bombay.
Prabhu's experience of your Pandava Sena jamming sessions. It's like being in a local train in Bombay. Very honorable words you have given. Anyways, I remember he came back at midnight from here. So I think we're quite conservative tonight.
Hare Krishna. I think we've been really fortunate today that all the seniors around us have really given us a lot of encouragement. And to be honest, we should really be thankful to them because they've come here with such a purpose to inspire us, to encourage us. So we should take this opportunity to thank them for approaching us with such a warm and big heart. Just coming here and making us feel like our endeavors are worthwhile and that Krishna is happy and Prabhupada is happy. So we should take this opportunity to thank them. And so can we please get 3 Haribols for that, please? Haribo! 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 And secondly, on that note, I think it's more important that we act upon their words that they've empowered us with. So we should take it upon ourselves to have that responsibility to act. Is it spontaneous enthusiasm based on the principles of purity, as Radhanath spoke. So with that mood, hopefully, in the coming year we can all get together and really take forward the mission. Hare Krishna. And also, we'd like to thank Yuvi, Vasanti Mataji and Vikram Prabhu for facilitating such a beautiful event. We'd just like to thank them. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj ki Jai!
Shall we have kirtan now? Would you like to sit peacefully or dance?
Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasati Gaur Bhakta